Welcome aboard the Athletics Can't Wait Jets podcast, your nonstop shop for all things Jets with Tim McMaster, Zack Rosenblatt, and Marissa Dunn.
Can't wait!
YouTube viewers, check out the great sponsors in the description below our video. For the sixth time this season, it's Victory Monday for the Jets. So go out on your front lawn and do some snow angels today to celebrate. The Jets are 6-3 after taking down the Super Bowl favorite Bills 20-17 on Sunday. Welcome into the Can't Wait podcast. Tim McMaster here, along with Zack Rosenblatt, our Jets reporter at The Athletic, and Marissa Morris. I did it, Marissa. I said Morris.
It's
that
okay.
Was inevitable.
It was inevitable.
I'll do it. I'll do an edit for the audio version. And Marissa Dunn. All right, we're moving on.
Thank you.
What a weekend for the New York Jets. What a win for this team. We're going to talk about the defense, obviously, first, because that's where it all started. We'll talk about the offense as well and Zach Wilson. What does it all mean? Plenty to get to this morning, and we had to get to you this morning after that game. We made sure that we were ready to go. Bright and I, we have our coffee ready to go. Zach, I'll start here before we get into the defense, the offense, all of that stuff. The stadium, from all accounts, was kind of split, but just talk about how the atmosphere changed throughout this game from 17-3 or from 14-3 to the Jets winning.
Yeah. You know, it definitely was. You know, I don't know the exact split. It was pretty close to even split of Jets to Bills fan, I would say. Which, you know, you understand to a degree. You know, Buffalo's not that far. Jets fans were a little down on the team after the one loss, which, you know, I mean, we were too, obviously. Like, we had a lot of concerns about Zach and all this stuff. But anyway, yeah. So, you know, I was telling you this before we started recording. There was like a point in the game where like something happened and there were loud cheers. And so I thought in my head, I'm like, wait, I thought that wasn't a good play for the Jets, but maybe I misunderstood what happened. And then I realized like it was just the Bills fans that were getting really loud. But yeah, then it started to turn definitely in the fourth quarter. Once they started just controlling the clock, getting first downs, getting stops, stopping the Bills offense. And then the crowd started turning towards the Jets. And it was like a playoff type atmosphere by the end. Like your heart was racing. You know, the Jets worked their way up the field in that last drive. They settle for a field goal. You're like, oh crap! Now Josh Allen has, you know, a decent amount of time to go up the field, and then they stop him. I mean, not only do they stop him, but they push them backwards. Like it was, you know, it's funny. I both on this podcast and I've like made appearances on like the radio and like our Bills podcast, and I kept getting asked the question like, if the Jets were to win this game, what are the things that they have to do? And I kind of got them all wrong. I said Zach Wilson can't turn the ball over. He turned it over once. They need to score first and like get a lead, and they didn't score first, I don't believe. And they were down by double digits, as they always are when they win these games. Yeah. And I said they had to get really lucky, which I don't think it was luck. I think it was they looked like the better team on Sunday. So you know, that's why this team is just, it's been a wild roller coaster of a season, but at the end of the day, they have 6 wins. Did Connor ever have a 6-win year on this podcast?
No, definitely not.
Yeah, no. I mean, maybe at like the very end of the year. No,
I guess they did have like 7 wins that one case here, but it was like a fluke. It was like a fluke.
Yeah, I think they got some late wins, right? Yeah.
But it was more moral. They were more moral victories. This is like real victories. So.
Yes,
exactly.
This is a good team.
Yes, I did. That's a great way of just summing it up. This is a good team.
The biggest thing you just said was they looked like the better team, which is amazing because, I mean, everybody goes into these games, right? And you're like, okay, there's a path to winning this game. But in my mind, it never included us saying the words, the Jets look like the better team. It was just like the Bills turned the ball over 5 times, blah, 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 all these little random things. And that's not the way this one went down. And if you think about it, after the first quarter, they were really the better team because they, like you said, they fell behind. Let's start on the defense, though. Josh Allen, 18 of 34, 205 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 46.8 rating. I mean, that's the line we like have feared we see each week from Zach Wilson. And it's what Josh Allen did. And this defense was just intense. The first 2 drives, it felt like Buffalo could do whatever they wanted. And then it was like a switch flipped, and this defense crank things up. Diggs, 5 catches, 93 yards at the half, nothing in the second half. That was one of the things we talked about last week, was the key matchups that I think we all wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And I think most of the fans were really excited about seeing in this game, even if it wasn't going to be a competitive game, was going to be Sauce and DJ Reed versus Diggs. There was a terrifying moment early in this game where Reed got banged up. And I think, how are we going to possibly stay in this game without him? He obviously was fine, continued on. And the numbers stand out. Sauce, 3 targets, 1 reception, was just outstanding. And they were able to shut down Diggs after that beginning. Did they talk at all about that, about the adjustments that were made? Because another thing we talked about last week was the fact that Diggs is a guy that if you talk trash to him, he gets fired up and a lot of times like plays better. I'm sure Sauce was talking, right? And DJ Reed was on him more than Sauce, but he did not get better as the game went on. They shut him down after halftime.
Yeah, I will say one interesting thing. So Sauce gave up that play to Diggs on the very first play of the game.
First play, right.
Move. And then Sauce didn't give up another catch the rest of the game to anybody. But I think the interesting adjustment they made, which I think says a lot about, and we should probably talk about DJ Reed a bit. I mean, we've hyped him up a lot on this podcast. I think probably even more than other people have. But so they switched their side. So normally Sauce is on the right side, and they switched it. And so DJ Reed was covering Diggs the rest of the game. And Reed, I mean, first of all, Sauce shut down Gabe Davis, who's a very dangerous receiver who whenever he catches the ball, it's usually for a big play. He shut him down. He had that pass breakup at the end of the game. But DJ Reed shut down Stephon Diggs. And, you know, he had one pass breakup late in the game where he like dove. It was on 3rd down. They aired it out as 1-on-1. DJ Reed, Diggs. Diggs got behind him. DJ Reed dove at the ball and knocked it down. Like it was, I can't imagine there's been many more better. That's a weird way of phrasing it. I can't imagine there's been. He's one of the best free agent signings that there was this year, and I would have to look back,
especially for the price, right?
Yeah, relative to like value and what he's contributing. I don't think the Jets thought he was going to be this good. Like I think they liked him a lot. I don't think they envisioned this. Like he's playing at a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level. There's only 2 All-Pro corners, so All-Pro gets maybe thrown around a little too much because they probably have 2 guys that you could argue deserve it. But I mean, DJ Reed, he's been a leader for this team. He's a really good tackler, so which makes him, I think, a more complete corner than Sauce is right now. He comes up in big moments. I don't know. He's just like, he's blown me away. Like Sauce, you know, we talk about Sauce all the time. Everybody talks about him. Understandably, he's great. He has the name. DJ Reed, a little more boring of a name, just on paper. If you look at just DJ Reed, not even that many letters. But he's been absolutely stellar. And the fact that they have 2 corners like that, you know, Sauce Gardner was asked after the game. So he was answering a question that he was asked. It wasn't like he was declaring this on his own, but he was asked if they're the best cornerback duo in the league, if he thinks they are. And he said, definitely. Which Eagles fans in particular, if you leave out anything involving the Eagles, they get really mad. And so they're like, what? He has no idea what he's talking about. Has he ever heard of James Bradbury and Darius Slay? But relative to expectations, like
it's the podcast, you know, it's my
yeah. The 2 somehow it always goes back to like the teams that you are on the podcast with. But I think they absolutely have a case. And if they're not the best now, I think they will be. I think an interesting debate, which I've seen people talking about, is at what point do you have to talk about, is this duo better than Darrelle Revis and Antonio Cromartie? And the point people make is that Sauce probably isn't quite at Revis's level yet, but DJ Reed is better than Antonio Cromartie. So, you know, it's an interesting discussion. And the fact that we're even like, it's like we have to have that discussion. It like just says how good those guys are. And I think everybody in the building would agree, like they're the key to how good this defense is. And I mean, Josh Allen was MVP frontrunner, and now I would argue he maybe is 3rd after that game. Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are probably ahead of him now. I mean, it's one game, you know, it's too early to talk about MVP probably, but everybody does. I actually had to submit some votes from the Athletic for MVP, Coach of the Year, and All Pro stuff.
Is that like a first half though?
First half, yeah. And
who did you vote for?
For MVP, I had Jalen Hurts first. Coach of the year, I said Dable, but I think Saleh is really threatening there, and Sirianni. So Connor had a tweet where he said it's only between Saleh and Dable. So now Philly is just like losing their mind on him.
Yeah.
And I voted for Sauce and Quinnen Williams as all pros.
Nice.
But this defense, and we can talk about it more broadly. I'm sure you have some other stuff to bring up, but the corners, like, it really does start with them. They shut down Josh Allen, man. Like, and I've seen some people saying, and he had really bad throws, those interceptions. They were like Zach Wilson-esque interceptions where you don't really know where he's throwing it. I think a lot of times what gets underrated with stuff like that is what the defense is doing to confuse him or force him into making those mistakes. Like, obviously it looks like it was all him, but I think the defense deserves credit for putting him in those positions to where he felt like he had to force a throw or whatever. So this was the real test of it. If this defense was the real deal, everybody's made excuses. Not everybody like in New York, everybody outside New York, that they've gone against backup quarterbacks. The Packers suck, so that win wasn't as good as it looks like, and blah, 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 all this stuff, the Steelers. And so is this defense legit? And you saw it this week. And this defense has one of the 2, 3, 4 best defenses in the NFL. And it's crazy to think about how far they've come from just last year. And a lot of that just comes down to the players Joe Douglas brought in this year. He brought in a star in Sauce Gardner, a star in DJ Reed. Quinnen Williams is healthy. Carl Lawson is healthy. Like, these are all it's wild. This is like a complete defense. Even if you say they have like a hole at safety, like, those guys have been solid. The linebackers have been solid. There's no weakness to the point where another team's going to be able to just kill them anymore in that area. So it's this defense is fun to watch, and they're the reason why they have this record.
Yeah, we talked about the safeties a lot early in the season, but we really haven't talked about them the last month or so. Yeah. Whitehead had the big interception on the first drive, which
almost had another one too that he dropped.
Yeah. And at the time, that Whitehead interception was kind of like, well, they kept him out of the end zone this time, but it just felt, you know what I mean? But you look back on this game, and like, if it was 21-3 instead of 14-3, it probably doesn't turn the way it did. It's at that point, it's probably guys start to hang their heads and that kind of thing. So that interception was huge to keep the game, where it was early on. The secondary, immense, everything you just said. But they also sacked Allen 5 times. Here's a guy who I think had been sacked 11 times all season coming into this game. And they did it the way they've done it all season, which is not blitzing, which I think allowed them to mostly keep him from doing too much scrambling. I mean, in the first half, obviously he had the touchdown run, which was a huge chunk of his overall running yards. After half, I think he only had 25 yards scrambling. And that touchdown was a breakdown, no question. I mean, it was just untouched, but 5 sacks. They were big one. The Quinnen one was huge after the turnover. Bryce Huff, maybe the biggest. Bryce
Huff Hive. Maybe we've been a Bryce Huff pod since the beginning, guys. Remember? Yeah,
we've been on board. Here's the thing about Bryce Huff. He plays. I don't know what the numbers are. How
like
many
15 snaps I think he played.
Okay, so he was up a little bit, right, from the 10 to 12.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest plays of the game on the drive where the Bills can go and win this game or tie the game with the field goal. And Huff is there with the big strip sack that basically it didn't end the game. I mean, you needed Sauce to make that play on 4th down, but it made it 4th and 21, right?
Yeah, that drive kind of was like the defense in a nutshell. Like I think everybody in the building was worried after they only were able to settle for like a 28-yard field goal or whatever it was on the drive before. So again, you're giving Josh Allen the opportunity to go up the field, and just immediately that's just not what happens. I think it was 2nd down when he had the sack. It went from 2nd and I had it in my story. I'm blanking on it. It was like 2nd and 9, but the sack like dropped it all the way to the 3rd and 21, like that, because he stripped it. That the Bills recovered it. It didn't wind up mattering, and so all they could do at that point is air it out. And Sauce Gardner, I saw Bills fans complaining that he wasn't even looking at the ball when he got that pass breakup, so they thought it was pass interference. But you don't have to look at the ball. It's just as long as you don't like knock him over when you're. It was like It was a great play, and it was like Sauce is like, he's so impressive. Like he was talking about how he was scared that the ball was going to come at some point. He wasn't seeing it, but he was like watching Gabe Davis's eyes, which I don't even really know how he's doing that because he's like running alongside him, kind of thing. He's like judging it. He really does. Like he's like judging if the ball's coming based on where Gabe Davis's eyes are. Like this is a rookie like doing this stuff. But yeah, that last drive, Bryce Huff, I mean, that's the thing I've been thinking about a lot, and we've talked about this a little bit, but like good teams, you know, they have the star level talent, which the Jets do, but it's guys just like winning in their role, like supporting guys like a Bryce Huff, you know, Quincy Williams making plays, you know, Jordan Whitehead coming up with the interception, like these role players that are just doing really well in their role. You know, they don't need them to be stars. They need those guys to just do their job. And so when Bryce Huff comes in, his one job, attack the quarterback, and he does a very good job at that. Jermaine Johnson made a great sack. He like chased Josh Allen down. That was in the fourth quarter, I believe, too. Like they're just having guys outside of their stars make plays, and that's the difference between the good teams and the teams that are like not legit. And that's why you can believe that this team, you know, they have, if you look at the schedule now, and we can get into this because we're going into the bye week and probably not going to talk again until next week. Some point today, we can talk about the schedule because it doesn't look easy, but they just beat the hardest team on their schedule once. So anything is possible now.
You mentioned Johnson. That was the last thing I had on the defense because he's back, obviously. And it was open field. It was Josh Allen rolling out. Like, nobody makes that play. Whether it's him, you know, his strength allowing him to break it or just a juke move. Like, in open field, nobody makes that play. And Jermaine Johnson made it for a sack. That was really impressive as well. All right. We could talk about the defense all day, I think, but we got to move things along here and get to the offense and get to Zach Wilson, the running game, and all of that. But first, let's take a quick break.
You've heard us talking about these strange tall boys of beer in the bottled water section of your local stores. Well, it's not beer. It's actually mountain spring water from the Alps, and it's called Liquid Death. And we're all pretty obsessed with it. Why is the water called Liquid Death? Well, because it will brutally murder your thirst, and their infinitely recyclable tall boy cans are helping to bring death to plastic bottles. How cool is that? They also donate 10% of the profits from every can sold to help kill plastic pollution. I'm so used to buying bottled water, and I can't tell you enough how great this Liquid Death has been. They have the mountain spring water. They also have a sparkling, which is honestly so good during the workday. Like, it feels something different. It's great. You pop the can open. I absolutely love it. They also have different flavored waters coming in 3 different flavors. I know you'll love it, so I highly recommend you go try it. Go get Liquid Death at your local Whole Foods Market, Target, and Stop and Shop stores. Or find a Liquid Death retailer near you with their store locator tool at liquiddeath.com/wheat. That's liquiddeath.com/wheat. Reserve Bar is your online source for premium and luxury spirits, wine, and champagne. And now Reserve Bar offers same-day delivery. Who doesn't love same-day delivery? Reserve Bar has a vast lineup of rare and hard-to-find bottles, premium brands, celebrity spirits, and limited releases that you just won't find at your local store. And no one does gifting spirits better than Reserve Bar. Looking for an elevated gift? ReserveBar.com has you covered. You can have a gift delivered right to your front door. It's perfect for birthdays, weddings, anniversaries, any holiday, you name it. Reserve Bar also has a great feature called Cocktail Lounge. This is a treasure trove of cocktail recipes, bartending tips, interviews with master distillers, celebrities, and more. So if you want to check out everything Reserve Bar has to offer, visit reservebar.com today and use the promo code WAIT to save $10 off your purchase of $75 or more on spirits, wine, or pre-made cocktails, but only when you use our special offer at reservebar.com, code WAIT. That's reservebar.com, and the code is WAIT. This offer expires December 31st, 2022.
All right, the defense was dominant. The offense was good. We'll leave it at that. They were good, and they did what they had to do. And I will say, late in this game, the offensive line and the running attack may have been dominant as well. But let's start with Zach Wilson, because the offense and the future of this team, obviously, that's what we always talk about. He outplayed Josh Allen. I don't think there's any debate about that. We mentioned Allen's 46.8 rating. Zach, 101.1, 18 of 25, 154 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. He did have the one fumble. The thing that stood out to me about Zach, and I noticed it early in the game and kept thinking it was going to change, but it continued throughout this whole game, was his decisiveness. The fact that he stepped back, made a decision, and threw the football, got rid of the football. He didn't always make the right decision, but he made a decision. He didn't wait and then scramble and then try to make some magic happen while doing pirouettes towards the sideline like we've seen. It was mostly in the pocket and making quick decisions. And you shared a stat, Zach, that backs that up fully. When he threw the ball in less than 2.5 seconds, he was 16 of 19, 140 yards, and the touchdown. And what stands out for me isn't those necessarily the percentage or the touchdown, because he's always been good when he's been in the pocket this year. But it's the number of plays. Like he only threw 25 passes, and 19 of them, he got rid of the ball in less than 2.5 seconds.
I think his time to throw was something like 2.1 seconds this year, which is the lowest of his career. Like he was going well over 3 seconds. Like 2.5 is usually like around the range that you kind of hover around the average. So he was getting the ball out really fast. It was working. I think the offensive line was doing a much better job. I think PFF only dinged them for like one pressure, which there probably was more than one pressure. In reality, I think there were some plays where it seemed like he got pressured. But this is the formula. Like even after that Patriots game where we were very down on him, I said it a few different times that they just need him to be average and they can compete with anybody. And he did his job. He did his job. He had that run where he ran for a first down in the corner where instead of going out of bounds, he let the clock run down and he took a hit and he was fine. He got up, although it should have been a helmet to helmet, by the way. I know fans are upset about that. I saw it. It was like he dove with his helmet, hit him with his helmet. Like I don't. And there was a couple plays where I don't look. I'm not like a complaint about the refs guy, but you have to be consistent with like the roughing the passer and the unnecessary roughness penalties. And the Jets were screwed on Sunday a few different times. But yeah, like that's the game you want out of Zach. You know, I saw somebody tweet this at me, and I think it's the right way of putting it. Like they just need Zach to be the game manager this year. They can worry about him taking the leap forward next year. Like this year, he just needs to be the game manager. I think that's fair. Like if they want to be like Super Bowl contenders, he needs to take the leap now. But that's probably a bridge too far. So this is the exact kind of game you want from him. Getting rid of the ball quickly. When he had to throw the ball away, he actually threw it out of bounds, which is good. The running game was absolutely dominant. Like last week, it was non-existent. Like Michael Carter looked awesome. I think I tweeted this out. He forced 8 missed tackles, which is like a crazy amount. I think he averaged 6 yards after contact. James Robinson started off slow, and you started to wonder if his knee was a problem. Then he started doing some things that were like pretty impressive too, and he scored that touchdown.
He had a great cutback in the fourth quarter too on that final drive.
Yeah. And so they have a solid duo of running backs. They have Garrett Wilson, who looks like an absolute star. He looks like their number one receiver. Him and Zach Wilson have a connection. I'm sure we'll get into the persona non grata at some point. But I mean, I was talking about this with another reporter last night. In the fourth quarter of a game against the Bills on a drive where they were trying to win it, Zach Wilson targeted Denzel Mims on third down. And it was like Zach Wilson's quote was along the lines of, who's our big receiver that you're going to rely on to make a catch in that moment? And he's like, Denzel Mims. Like that's where this season has gone. And we're going to get into discussion about the receiver room in a minute, I'm sure. But that just says everything about feed Mims. Yeah. Everyone who was on the Mims train and never got off is feeling real good right now. It's just, Zach Wilson did his job. That's what it comes down to. And if we say that most weeks, the Jets are going to either win or have a chance to win.
I did like one other thing and this includes Mims too. The other thing that stood out to me, first play of the game, they threw a deep ball. It was incomplete, but I did like the mentality there of first play of the game, firing it down the sideline deep. And that drive was a 3-and-out, but it just felt good that it wasn't like step back and people criticized his play a week ago on the first play where he just kind of blindly threw it to the running back. Good job by LaFleur, I think, just unleashing the offense right away, even though it didn't work there. I think it does send a message to the Bills defense, at least, to like, all right, these guys are going to at least try to throw it deep on us. Wilson on their first touchdown drive, 6 for 7. He was really good when they were good in this game. And it had to, I know he said all the right things yesterday after the game as far as the criticism he received during the week, but it came from everywhere, right? It came from Fitzpatrick, former Jets quarterback. It came from, I mean, we said it. The only guy who didn't criticize Zach Wilson last week was Josh Allen, who then played like Zach Wilson has played on Sunday. But
maybe he was doing Zach a favor in the end. He's like, you know what? Let's let Zach have a day.
But I mean, it had to feel just a probably a relief in some sense because that criticism has to build on you. But he also seems like a very confident guy, so I'm sure he's walking tall today.
Yeah. I mean, you can say you don't listen to what anybody else is saying, and that's the thing players say, but it was loud. So he definitely heard it, and I don't know if I don't know if the criticism is what he took to heart or him rewatching the film from last week and seeing all the things he did wrong. Like we talked about with Josh Allen's quote about how he said he had that 3 interception game his rookie year or whatever it was, and then it was like the light turned on for him after that. And if that's the case now, or you can at least rely on Zach not making those like backbreaking mistakes, or you focus on that, you focus on him, becoming just like a solid quarterback. And then after that, you hope you can start capitalizing on some of his arm talent and taking more shots downfield, getting more creative. For now, they don't need to do that. But it was great. And, this was the formula during their 4-game winning streak. I believe he only threw the ball like 2 or 3 times in the fourth quarter. And that was in a game. This is a game where they had to come back. So they were committed to running the ball, which they weren't last week. It was working. And that allowed Zach Wilson to make some more plays. And I don't know. It was I will say Michael Ford deserves a lot of credit for the game he called. It was a really, really smart game plan. They went for it on that punt. They had the fake punt where Ashton Davis got the first down. That was pretty big. Although that was actually on the Skycam drive. So
that led to the Skycam.
Yeah, yep. Yeah. Which was again the fact that we haven't even talked about that yet is that was like
we get that in the other thoughts section here coming up.
But but the point being, like, normally this is sort of game the Jets would we've said this a lot this year, but this is the game the Jets would have absolutely just like fallen apart in, and they kept their composure. Zach kept his composure after the turnover. They quickly got it back with the Sauce interception, which we didn't really mention before, I should say. They got the interception, so Zach turns it over. 2 plays later, they intercept it, and they score a couple plays later on the James Robinson pass.
Yep.
And so Zach Wilson keeping his composure is huge.
So the drive that they ended up getting the game-winning field goal on, where they started from their 4-yard line, I just want to give LaFleur a little extra love here.
Yeah.
I think most teams at that point are thinking we're going to pass the ball to move the ball down the field from here. The Jets had runs of 9 yards, 7 yards, 16 yards, 17 yards, 4 yards, 15 yards, and 3 yards on that drive. They just continued to pound it on this Bills defense and just effectively with this just pieced together offensive line that has somehow gelled. Now, do you think they saw something? Because this Bills defense was great against the run most of the season.
Yeah.
Struggled a week ago and then struggled again against the Jets. I feel like the Jets, in studying and game planning, saw something from last week that they were able to also capitalize. I don't know, but man, to see them run the ball like they did when we've just kind of been honest about this offensive line and who's out there, right? I mean, it's an offensive line of mostly backups at this point.
Yeah. I that's like Nate Herbig, who I just knew from when I covered the Eagles, I thought he had like the ability to be a starter. Like, he's someone that people, not even just fans, like experts, I've seen videos of him. Like, he was dominating in the run game.
He's been playing so well.
Yeah, he's been awesome.
And his brother plays for Wisconsin.
I saw that recently. He's like a linebacker, right?
And like leads the Big Ten in sacks because Maryland got destroyed by Wisconsin this weekend. They're like Herbig. Yeah. They're like Nick Herbig, I think his name is. I'm like, there's no way Nick Herbig is not Nate Herbig's brother.
Yeah, there's no way.
So
they call him Nasty Nate, I think.
Yeah.
He's a fun personality. It's interesting. They have a bunch of offensive linemen set to hit free agency. Him, Connor McGovern, George Fant.
Connor McGovern had some good blocks yesterday too.
The interior, Laken Tomlinson was playing better, but Nate Herbig is one that stood out as a guy that's another waiver claim that worked out for Joe Douglas. He's claimed like JFM and him and Quincy Williams. Anyway, so actually something I wanted to say on this podcast is, a lot of times we give the coordinators all the credit. I think 2 position coaches that deserve a lot of credit for this season are the offensive line coach, John Benton, who, as he said to us, like, I've had to earn my keep. And Tony Oden, the cornerbacks coach, who has gotten those guys playing at a level, and even Michael Carter II at nickel corner. So I think John Benton has really, been thrown a curveball this season. And now the offensive line, that was one of their better performances they've played. And I would think they're going to get one of, if not both, of George Fant and Max Mitchell back after the bye. If not right away, then soon. And so then you'll have a better right tackle. You have the rest of the offensive line. Dwayne Brown is going to be hit and miss just because at his age and the injury he's battling. If Laken Tomlinson can play at this level, McGovern keeps playing solid, Nate Herbig solid. Like, they can just have a solid offensive line. Remember, there's no Pro Bowlers there, but it's a solid group that protects Zach Wilson enough to where he gets rid of the ball quickly, and they open up holes in the running game. And this is going to be a team that's going to every game they're going to win. It's going to be old school, run it down your throat and stop you on defense. And it is crazy. There's a lot of teams in the NFL this year that are like that, because I feel like the quarterback play is so bad around the league right now. Like, you look at like the Bears, the Titans, like basically like didn't throw the ball and they almost beat the Chiefs because they basically weren't playing a quarterback with Malik Willis.
Right.
So there's so many teams doing that, and it's funny that it turned from like such a passing league to now you can win running the ball, and it puts more value on running backs and stuff like that, which is an interesting turn. And the Jets are built to be that sort of team. They have the 49ers formula, and it's working.
James Robinson, leading up to the game, was questionable. At one point, I got a notification on my phone that he was out, and then he obviously wasn't out. He played in the game. I don't know how that turned about, but is the knee something that we should be concerned about?
I mean, you never love seeing a guy be added to the injury report on Saturday, especially with an injury that was like a whole thing with the Jaguars when he left. He was like having knee soreness or whatever, and he started off looking pretty slow in the game yesterday. If it's a lingering thing, it's a concern, but he looked good enough to me yesterday that I'm not as concerned as I was when that news came across the feed on Saturday, I would say. So it's something to keep an eye on. I think the bye week is coming at a good time for him as much as anybody, probably, to give that knee a rest. But yeah, I'm not concerned in that he's an ideal RB2 behind Michael Carter, and they have a solid duo. Maybe they don't have the explosion of Breece Hall, but this can be like a run it down your throat type group.
Yeah, and he ended up with 13 carries to Carter's 12 in the game. Obviously, 12. Carter much more in the yardage front, but back and forth between those guys, it worked the way it's supposed to, like you said. All right, we still have to talk about the Skycam and plenty of other stuff, the schedule going forward, what we can expect from this team. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll have all of that. Fall is chaos in your pants. You're overheating 1 second, freezing the next. To be ready for anything, you need underwear that can handle everything. It's time for Tommy John underwear. In Tommy John underwear, you're that much more comfortable, so you can do everything better. Name a problem with other underwear, and Tommy John solved it. Tommy John's breathable, lightweight fabric has 4 times the stretch of competing brands. They come with a no wedgie guarantee, thanks to a non-rolling waistband and legs that never ride up. Plus, they feature a horizontal, quick draw fly. Hammock pouch support stops the awkward swing and slap, giving everyone something to be grateful for. With over 18 million pairs sold, people love Tommy John underwear. That's why Tommy John doesn't have customers, they have fanatics. Plus, everything's backed with Tommy John's best pair you'll ever wear or its free guarantee. So go to TommyJohn.com/athletic right now for 20% off your first order. 20% off at TommyJohn.com/athletic. TommyJohn.com/athletic. I left this last segment for just kind of random thoughts that I scribbled down throughout the game and some big picture stuff. We've covered a lot of them, though. So
yeah.
Pat on the back to us for doing that. But one thing we didn't dive into fully yet is the Skycam, which was, I mean, we look back on this game as the Skycam game, right?
Oh,
like the game that Skygate, and it's supposed to be. I mean, it started exactly how you would expect, right? The Jets have some momentum. They do the fake punt, and then they just stop. And watching it on TV, Zach, there was a little bit of like confusion right away, and I'm sure in the press box there was too. Suddenly the teams are kind of walking off the field, and then it took a little. Eventually, Ian Eagle, like you could tell he was like listening, like what are they saying in my ear? And he explained what was happening, and then they show the camera like sitting on the field basically. But from there, the Jets turn the ball over, and you're like, up, here we go. The Skycam ruined the season. But then they right themselves and they go on from there. But Rasala even said it after the game, right? You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah. I mean, Jets fans already think everybody is out to get them, and that certainly did not help anything.
Even CBS apparently is out to get them.
Michael Carter was like, he's like, my third eye is not open right now. I don't have any conspiracy theories for you, but, which is pretty funny. But yeah, it was so weird. And the Skycam was just kind of floating over the field a little bit, and they're trying to because they have to bring it down on the string because the string's like all the way across the field or the wire, I should say, not the string. And I asked Sauce Gardner about it, and he said DJ Reed told them, which wound up being really good advice, to stay warm because if we have to go out there quickly, they're probably going to take a shot on us. And so he had them stretching, and he's like, we're stretching, but we're also making sure the thing doesn't fall on our heads. That's the weirdness of, and like I wrote about, this is the lead to my story was about the whole Skycam thing. I talked to Dwayne Brown about it. He's been in the league forever, has never experienced anything like that. So they have momentum. They're all the way down the field. That's the drive where they had the fake punt. They're in the Bills territory, and 2 plays later, after they finally get back after 10 to 15 minute delay, Zach Wilson sack fumble. 2 plays later, Sauce interception. That's the moment where you knew this is not the cliche of same old Jets. This would have been the moment where everything went to hell for the Jets in the past. Everything would have started. It would have been a comedy of errors from that point on, and we'd be talking about it as a Skycam game in a different way. But now it's going to be looked back fondly where that was the moment where things could have gone badly. And the Jets, if you look at their numbers post Skycam, their stats on both sides of the ball are probably pretty ridiculous, honestly. So it's I don't know, maybe that's the turning point of the season. Maybe this is where they start becoming a legit good team. I don't know, but that was one of the weirder things I've experienced covering the NFL. And yeah, I mean, while you're on, the fans started booing. It was I felt bad for the 2 cameramen who were trying to get it, because I'm sure they're everybody's staring at them in the stadium on TV. That's a lot of pressure to get things going.
And that thing's super expensive too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so if they drop that too, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a story about exactly what happened. I am curious. I'm sure that'll come out at some point. But that was something else.
Yeah, it was crazy. Couple other things post game that came out. Both teams. One, this is probably because the Jets are so young, but so many guys after the game talked about the family factor with this team and how they hang out. They hang out off the practice field and all these things, and that happens when a lot of guys on the team don't have families and aren't married, and right, a lot of it goes into it. But yeah, but that's also great. That's what builds camaraderie, right? Is that these guys are hanging out all the time. And it was interesting how many guys pointed that out after the game. Because that is the vibe.
That came out of, I asked a few different guys, especially on the defense, so what is it about you guys that makes you special? And you think that they're gonna we got a bunch of dogs, or they're gonna be the talent. But I asked Jermaine Johnson that. Jermaine, who was a guy who's a first round pick in a rotation, he's not starting, and he's saying that. DJ Reed said it. It's just very interesting to me that's the first thing that comes to their head. We just love playing with each other, and that's so when we go out. Quincy Williams was, he was funny. He was we view the during the week as our work day, and Sunday as a party. That's when we're trying to have fun. This team just has fun together, and I don't know. You can, again, winning, any team that's winning is gonna have a vibe like this for the most part, but. I don't know that the Jets have had this kind of vibe in a very long time. So it's a fun locker room to be able to cover. It's a cool group of personalities and stuff.
I do feel like there's picture this image in my head of after the game, all these guys are having a pizza party or something, hanging out together. And Elijah Moore is standing in the corner. Well, not talking to anyone. So let's get into that, because Elijah Moore had no catch.
Before you do, pizza wise, funny. So Denzel Mims was eating a slice of pizza at his locker after the game, and I didn't see that. But another reporter pointed it out, and then his interview, in front of the camera, he's like 1 second, he's finishing chewing. That guy is just such a legend to be. His personality is so funny. He just does not care what people think about him. He just carries himself in such just interesting way. that fascinating. But yeah, Elijah Moore, he ducked out of the locker room pretty quickly. I'll say. I just pulled up how many snaps he played. He played 27 snaps. Not only was he not targeted, I don't know if his eyes ever looked in that direction. That's the degree. And he was playing in the slot the whole game. Actually, let me see the exact numbers. He played 19 of 27 snaps in the slot, and the whole thing was maybe that's the key to getting him going. He's just not a part of this game plan. I can't imagine he's very happy, and smartly he's not saying it. I don't know how long that'll last. The most interesting to me, and I saw a lot of comments asking about Elijah earlier, what it looks like when Corey Davis gets back. And I don't really have an answer for that. I don't see how you can put him on you can't take Denzel Mims off the field at this point. So, and Garrett Wilson is obviously their number one receiver now, and Corey Davis is going to play. Like I imagine in like 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends and 2 receivers, I imagine it would be Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis or Denzel Mims at this point, or even Mims and Davis, because those guys are their best run blockers. So what does Elijah Moore bring to the table for you? And if Zach doesn't have a connection with him, Jeff Smith in theory would be the one that you would deactivate, because I don't know how much he brings, but he had a catch. He had like a 16-yard catch or something like that. They like him on special teams. So I don't know. It goes back to our original discussion of I don't really get why they didn't trade him if they don't really have a plan for him anymore, and if they're not going to get him the ball anymore and all that stuff. So it's going to be something to keep an eye on. It's going to be in the back of everybody's mind every week when he plays and doesn't get targeted, or if he doesn't play and go in the coming weeks. Yeah, it's very weird. I don't really know what's going on there. I mean, he clearly does not have a connection with that quarterback, and he does have one with Garrett Wilson, and he does have one with Denzel Mims, and he does have one with Corey Davis when he's back. So I just don't see what the role is for Elijah Moore on this team anymore, which is crazy to think about, because he was really, really good last year, and he's explosive and fun. And I think in training camp, I have said this, there was days where he was the best player on the field. And now we've reached this point where we had to keep checking, like, has Elijah been on the field? And you look, and he's on the field. He's just not getting like part of the offense. And it's very weird. And I don't really know how this goes forward and how he handles himself now that he's going to have to be on this team. Is he going to complain? Is he going to pout? Is he going to not practice hard? Like, I don't know. Everybody seems to say that he still tries hard, but how much is he going to try hard when he's made it known that he wants the ball and they're not getting the ball? So eventually we're going to even probably stop talking about him if he's going to have a role like this. But it's like still relevant right now. But once David gets back and he's the 4th string receiver, like, what do you do with him? I don't know.
Amazing thing is we didn't really talk too much about Garrett Wilson, who had a great game, 8 catches, 92 yards, and most of that early in the game because the run game really took over late. But he was awesome, and Zach clearly, like you said, developing a connection there because he was looking for him a lot early in the game. It's always interesting to look at the quotes coming out of the other locker room, and this one really jumped off the page from Deion Dawkins. He said, the funny thing is I started reading this quote, I think it was in your story, and I thought it was from a Jet because of the way I was reading it. I was like, wait, one of the Bills players said this?
Yeah.
So this is a different Jets team. They came out here and they swung and swung and swung, and hey, they hit us a couple of times. They hit us and they ended up with a win. They have a different swagger and a different confidence level about themselves. That's coming from the team that just got beat. I mean, that's an honest quote, and it really stands out.
It's interesting. It feels like the Bills have been raving about the Jets like all week. It's like they were trying to let everybody know, like, look, if we lose to this team, it's because they're pretty good, which is interesting to me because, a lot of times the Jets have always been, the team that you look at on your schedule and you're like, all right, we can move on past that game and think about who we have the week after that. Like, that's just always what it's been. So I think people are finally, this win is going to teams are going to start taking notice. The league's going to start taking notice. Experts. I mean, I haven't watched like any of the shows much today. I don't really know what they're saying, but I get the impression it's pretty positive about the Jets right now. And this is just a team that's going to have to be taken seriously. I can't imagine there's going to be many more games where they're 11-point underdogs, especially at home or whatever the final line was. I think it got down to 10.5, but
10.5,
so I'm curious to see, especially with the lines, what they look like each week. Cause you've seen it with like the Giants. They still seem to be underdogs every week. I think the Jets have a better roster than the Giants. Some tough games on the schedule in New England. I'm curious to see what that line's going to be. We've talked like later in the year, some of those games they have on the road. I'm very interested to see how Vegas starts like betting on the Jets and how if the other teams really start taking them seriously or not.
All right, you mentioned the rest of the schedule. 538 gives the Jets a 59% chance of making the playoffs right now. 8 games to go. You figure 4-4 gets you into the playoffs, right? 10-7, that'll get you there. 9-8, gets dicey at this point with 17 games. So you have the bye week, then it's Patriots. We'll see. That's a tough game in New England still. But having lost to them the first time, there's going to be some serious motivation there. Home for the Bears feels like it has to be a win.
It should, but Justin Fields has been looking really good.
Yeah, he has. at the Vikings is interesting because the Vikings
Yes.
have only lost one game, but they almost lose every single week.
Yeah, I know. They feel like it doesn't feel like they only have one loss, but they somehow
Right.
do. Yeah.
They win by 3 points every week. I had them at 3.5 and lost this week on the picks. Then Bills again in Buffalo. That's going to be tough. But then Lions at home, that has to be a win. Jaguars at home has to be
Those
a win.
two have to be
and
wins.
then,
Yeah.
So if you get to that point, I think that feels like maybe 3-3, right? And you have to win
at
one
worst,
out of your final two. And then you get at Seattle on New Year's Day.
Looks
and
like
then
the hardest
at
game on their
Miami.
schedule all of a sudden.
Yeah. And then at Miami.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
It's a hard schedule.
It's hard. It's doable. 4-4 is definitely it's definitely there, but it's not a given. Like there aren't 4 clear victories. I think there's three that you feel like they should win, but they're going to probably have to win a game that they're not favored in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's not, and I don't think the Bears will be an easy out anymore necessarily. Right. But I think their defense could like confuse a guy like Justin Fields. So yeah, it's I mean, the fact that they have 6 wins going into the bye, we kind of just assumed they would just have 5 with like these last 2 games. What was coming up? They have 6.
We talked about like 2-7 going into the season, right?
Yeah, and I think the over under was 5.5 wins, which they already have beaten. So everything that happens now is gravy. Like I know fans won't be happy if they like go 8-9 or something like that, but nobody was like some people projected 8 wins. Most of it was like 7 wins. I think like if you just looked around the league, what people were saying about them, I think I said 7 or 8. If they get to 9 and miss the playoffs, it's still a good year. This is all hypothetical, obviously, but yeah, this is a hard schedule. The Jets have proven they're good enough to get through it. And the crazy part is they're good enough to get through it even after, which we didn't even mention, like they're good enough to do this. And they lost maybe their 2 best offensive players 2 weeks ago. And they're still like a lot of teams after that, like they're done. But Joe Douglas has built a roster of depth and talent that they've overcome that. So you can't put anything past this team anymore. There's going to be weeks where they have a bad Zach Wilson week or a bad loss, and maybe we overreact. But at the end of the day, it's clear this team is not going to let that linger. They're really good at bouncing back. So if they go to New England and get killed or whatever, I don't think they will. But if that happened, maybe they come back out and kill the Bears the next week after that. And at Minnesota, I think is a winnable game. It's on the road, so it's hard. But I feel like Minnesota is the one I have my eye on as like that 4th win, I would say. But yeah, it's going to be fun. We're going to be, if we're not covering playoff football, we're going to be covering meaningful games in December at minimum. And playoff football seems like a real, if not likelihood, possibility at least.
And Sunday almost felt like a playoff game, which is pretty cool for this Jets franchise right now. 6-3. Awesome. One more question for you. Did Chris Streveler cut the Skycam cable?
Well, I mean, I'm surprised he didn't leap up to save the day, climb the wire.
That's true. That's a good point.
Chris Streveler.
Oh, you don't have an answer for it? You're just, no, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean,
I got Streveler in. Anything else you want to add? Did I miss anything, Marissa, Zach?
Well, I should say we're Marissa and I both are taking some vacation for this bye week, so we won't have a pod later in the week. We'll probably do our picks just on social media. We'll find a fan to like pick it for us or whatever. But
or maybe we'll take a week from that.
Yeah. So taking a little break, much needed. Second half stretch. We got to plan for a playoff run, so need a breather. I mean, Marissa, unfortunately, Can't Wait is not her only podcast, even though it's her favorite one. So she deserves a break as well.
I'm just taking Friday. I got my cousin's bachelorette in Miami. I'll go scout out the Dolphins.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
Yeah, exactly. So looking forward to getting a breather. The team's going to get one. They need it. They'll heal up, and second half of the season is going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we'll be back early next week, probably with a mailbag type episode, and we'll talk big picture stuff and then getting you ready for the Patriots later next week. But enjoy the rest of the bye week. Nothing better than going into the bye week on a victory, especially a victory over a team like the Bills, Super Bowl contenders. Enjoy the rest of Victory Monday as well. If you want to join The Athletic, you can do it for $1 a month for 6 months. Go to theathletic.com/can't wait. We'll talk to everybody next week.